Today we explain the story of the Warlord's Ruined Dungeon. This epic tale takes us through a Dark Age castle, where we learn about an Ahamkara and its warlord ally, Naim. These two formed a bond long ago, but the House of Kings would invade, become corrupted into Scorn, and would make their presence known. A tragedy would take place, enacting one last wish of vengeance. A time later, the Guardian heads in with Crow and Petra to free the Ahamkara and the secrets within. Let's discuss the full story of Warlord's Ruin.
Death is not the end for an Ahamkara. We'll secure the bones and make sure this can't happen again. Something is different about this one. Even like this, and its silence, it could move worlds.
So let's explain the story of this dungeon. I put everything together in order of the castle, Ahamkara, and Scorn's tale, then up through the Guardian's encounter in the actual dungeon and ending. In lore order basically. So you will hear certain lines in the end of the quest dialogue first, but it goes in chronological order of the story, if that makes sense. The Great Ahamkara Hunt. A hunt organized by the leaders of the city to destroy all Ahamkara wish dragons and their bones for the safety of Guardians. Their wishes were too dangerous. Most wish dragons were found in places like Venus and the Dreaming City, but most of Sol became their home after the arrival of the Traveler. Today's tale begins during the Great Hunt, when Lord Shaxx took on an Ahamkara, one he had many challenges with, but eventually was able to take down.
Something is different about this one.
And so, the Great Hunt claims the life of another Ahamkara. You slew me 14 times, Wish Dragon. I landed a killing blow only once. Hardly seems fair. They say that to draw a weapon against one of your kind is to wish for victory. Even if the beast is slain, the wish is granted. The dragon wins either way. Perhaps that's why they send me on these hunts. Because I do not wish to do this. The Ahamkara are a force of nature. To blame you for an ill-conceived wish is like blaming fire for burning down a house. And yet, when a fire rages out of control, it must be extinguished. There is no joy or ambition in it. Only the knowledge that it must be done. Rest well, dragon. Let this castle be your tomb, one befitting a creature of your stature. That is the closest thing to a wish you'll get from me.
Lord Shaxx would slay an Ahamkara named Heffend. Heffend was a tough creature for Shaxx to battle and explains the struggle with the Ahamkara themselves. Even if you feel like you win killing them and their bones, you still lose as they transcend death and can still grant wishes and cause havoc. Shaxx respected this creature though, and entombed it in a Dark Age castle, never to be found again. Sometime later during that Dark Age, Shaxx and a warlord Naim were sharing a few drinks, and eventually Shaxx led her to the castle, or told her about it, showing her the remains of a once powerful creature.
You know, you sit around enough campfires with Saladin, and you hear about castles like this. There was this warlord in the Dark Age named,
Don't start.
Naim. She drank with a warlord who'd felled a shape-shifting beast. He led her to the Beast Lair, a castle in snowy peaks. Inside was a skull that whispered promises. I always thought Saladin was just blowing smoke.
You found your people. Guardians do love their myths and stories.
Lord Shax led Naeem to this Dark Age castle, and she found the Ahamkara's skull. Naeem, like most warlords, was ruthless. She'd grown a reputation for her brutality caused across parts of ruined Earth. In the Zeta's shell card, we see her journey back to the castle and bond formed with the bones of the Ahamkara Hefend. Cold swept down from the frigid mountaintops against already old stories of a Dark Age castle. Winter slicked the ramparts as night fell across the European expanse. Naeem stood at a long and narrow bridge, helmet shielding her face from the deafening wind and stinging snow. She left her blood-stained fingertips in old Russia, gone west until they no longer called her Warlord. Here, she had heard that Lightbearers hunted and felled a dragon. Maybe some of its magic remained, enough to start anew. She followed the whispers through the storm and rubble, ran her fingers over the scars in stone. This was the place the old warrior had told her to go, and so she pressed deeper into the keep until the whispers turned to words and the bones of a great beast laid at rest before her eyes. She approached the skull, the center of the skeleton. Dragon, Ahamkara. The language that filled the room ceased to be ambient. Their attention focused on her. They drew desire from her heart and passion from her blood. She spoke as if by instinct. The whispers twisted into hissing laughter. She almost felt the skeleton's anticipation vibrating through its dry, hollow marrow. Then it spoke to her. Kindness. There is so little left, and the cost so high. The gulf between your want and your reality. This is truly what you wish for. I've spent my power poorly, like you, to survive. This is why they hunted us, killed us. Naeem stepped forward slowly. Wouldn't you rather be loved than feared? The Ahamkara bones were silent in consideration. I know the Lightbearer who slew you. I know you respected their determination, Naeem pressed. Grant me kindness. Let us share that kindness. Let us make them love us as much as we were feared. The voice focused again. Charity does not sate my hunger. Then do not be charitable. Let me face the debts of your wishes, while those who benefit live freely. The voice hissed and cackled. You would take their debts upon your head? I have many lives to give as the weight of their debts. Naeem placed a hand on the skull. Your wish is granted. Naeem the Warlord leaves her past life and hears whispers of an ancient castle with an Ahamkara. She enters and finds the bones of a creature. She makes this wish to be loved rather than feared, leave her Dark Age Warlord days behind her and become something new. Naeem's journey is one of redemption and love, turning away from being this Warlord. At first, Hefend is curious. This won't satisfy its hunger for deception, but the Ahamkara and the Warlord are similar, both hunted and killed for their power. Naeem shows her willingness to bear the burden of others' desires, places her hand on the dragon's skull, signaling her commitment, and so they form a bond, and the wish is granted. Naeem and Hefend, through this bond, now grant and ask for wishes. Naeem takes on tribute from the nearby villages, grant wishes for other people to try and redeem herself, taking the pain upon herself if there is any. This seems like it could be a good thing, helping others out, becoming a better person, but this quickly became an issue, as word of this began to spread, not only through Dark Age villages for wishes, but to an enemy in the House of Kings, who would storm the castle.
Naeem and Hefend, that's the Ahamkara's name. They'd become friends. Pretty tragic, actually. Saladin said their bond was like a mutual domestication. But it wasn't long before the House of Kings stormed the castle.
When the kings came, I take it Naeem didn't survive them?
No. And in her final breath, she wished ruin on their house. That her vengeance follow them into the grave. Very particular wording.
When the fallen House of Kings came, Naeem didn't survive. She would fight through the depths of the castle, do everything she could, but fell at the hands of the Elixni invaders. The kings had heard about the Ahamkara wish magic, and their curiosity and sheer might killed the warlord Naeem. Before or during her death though, a last wish was made to Heffend, enact revenge on these kings for their terror. They had ruined the castle, Naeem's new life and bond with the Ahamkara creature, so make sure they never see the light of day again. Bring me my revenge. Heffend would use the Taken to enact Naeem's last wish for revenge against the House of Kings, feeding upon their power. Without a master, the Taken are mindless. It's possible they could have been attracted to Heffend because of its power. This act of vengeance is portrayed as a self-destructive cycle, highlighting the futility and destructive nature of such desires. Heffend raised the House of Kings here into Scorn to enact revenge for the warlord Naeem.
Uldren had history with the House of Kings. That's what led to the Scorn in the first place.
I'm familiar with your history, but the banners here are ancient.
Like from the Dark Age? You know that Warlord? The Skull promised her anything she wanted. She offered that promise to surrounding villages. For tribute, of course. Brokered their wishes and protected against consequences. Naeem's reputation spread until... Any guesses, Petra?
She drew attention from the House of Kings, who coveted this power.
This has to be the castle from Saladin's story. The Scorn have to be kings. It's the only thing that makes sense. Heffend was buried here since the Dark Age, but the instant he could, he lured the Taken in. Poisoned himself, feeding off their ties for the darkness, their want. He found a loophole to raise the kings into Scorn and enact his friend's dying wish for revenge.
Holding on to that anger for what? Centuries? Just to destroy itself with taking corruption. Of course. Vengeance is an Ouroboros, and everything cyclical is doomed to destroy itself eventually.
So this gives us our setting, a Dark Age castle whose warlord Naeem had found ruin. Naeem and Heffend were friends of sorts, worked together until the House of Kings arrived and killed the warlord, leading to her ruin. In a last wish, the Taken corruption was spread, turning the Elixni House of Kings into Scorn. Thus, Heffend's vengeance blighted chimera was born. Our Guardian learns of this place from Crow and Petra. A dark ether trail leads them to a ruined castle. Upon first entering, we hear tales of the Ahamkara and their magics, the danger from the desire and reality.
Guardian, good running tactical for you again. This is where the dark ether trail went cold. Oh, Petra's calling. I'll patch her into the feed. Petra, did you lose some Scorn on Earth?
Not exactly. Riven tells us an Ahamkara claims territory in this region.
I've patrolled this range dozens of times. I'd have noticed a dragon.
They have a history of eluding you, but we'll get to the bottom of this.
Not too long after passing the first gate, we find the first boss who belongs to the Scorn, who has a very interesting backstory. In this dungeon, there are members of the House of Kings, the Elixni House, who were turned into Scorn by Heffend. But there are also Scorn sent by Fikrul. Fikrul Scorn are sent to bring the raised Scorn back home, make them a part of their pack. From the new exotic Buried Bloodlines, we hear Fikrul's mission. Fikrul stands on the bridge of a seized ketch. Ravagers keep watch over a handful of Elixni that remain to pilot the vessel. 5 heavily armored Scorn kneel before Fikrul, their heads bowed in reverence. Fikrul steps forward. Dark rumors whisper of the dreaming city. The reef hunts us. The darkness claims us, and our father is not returning. But even without Aldrin Sov, new Scorn still rise. Old Scorn still live unseen. Fickrul waits for silence before looking beyond the 5 armored Scorn knights to the greater horde that gathers. He turns and points his staff at the pilots. These Elixni, they speak of Scorn risen on Earth, where dead things will hunt them, or darkness claims them. We serve only Scorn. Fickrul raises his staff above his head. We will bring them home, open their minds as I have for you, as I will for all Scorn. The horde gnashes and cheers. Rathil, Malaris, Vrissix, Nymix, Searlox. Ascend, commands Fickrul over the commotion. The 5 armored Scorn stand. You loyal sworn will be my knights. Scorn move from beyond them to present the knights with staves made in the image of their leaders. Go to Earth, bring brothers and sisters home before darkness claims them. The knights bow. Rathil, Fickrul places a hand on the center knight. You will lead. Rathil enters the quarters of the Ketch's dead captain to see Fickrul gazing at the walls of bound tomes filled with Elixni scrawl. Rathil could not understand the contents of these books, but his father had learned much from them. With time, he would learn to unravel their secrets as well. Father, you called me. We prepared to leave. Fickrul turns, a polished steel case in his lower arms. I have one last gift for you. Fickrul opens the case to display a clean-looking weapon, a sleek bolt caster. Rathil could still see its original design, twisted, broken, and refashioned into something stronger as he was. Claimed from kings by wolves, modified, Scorn now, like us. I am honored, Rathil says, gently lifting the weapon from its case and bowing. Fickrul looks upon his son with pride. I send you to claim kings, as we once did as wolves. Carry our history with you. Claim it. Bring it home. So this is great, an update on Fickrul and his whereabouts and plan. On a seized fallen Ketch, he makes this plan, sending 5 knights to a Dark Age castle to bring his Scorn home, and also uncover the secrets of darkness and the magics placed here. The first boss we encounter in this new dungeon is Rathil, first broken knight of Fickrul from that lore card. Fickrul's son wields the same weapon described in the card, and the other broken knights can be seen throughout the dungeon. So this has an interesting dynamic. Fickrul still exists, but so does Crow, who once led Fickrul as Aldrin. Something is going to happen in the future between these two for sure.
Wait. Guardian. The knights you fought are marked. Something we did with the Barons.
Crow, you aren't responsible for this. These Scorn didn't come from the reef.
I'm not seeing things. It's a signature in the dark ether.
Fickrul has been missing from the shore for some time. You can let this go.
This all feels personal. Aldrin links to the kings, both linked to Fickrul. My one dangling thread.
Step back from yourself. New Scorn Rising drew Fickrul's attention, kings no less. What if this was a diplomatic envoy? The witnesses' Scorn are empty flesh-made weapons, but the Scorn here appear to express crude culture.
Fickrul's followers have always been different, capable of learning. Maybe he saw that potential here.
Then maybe you can still get through to him.
Petra, I've never apologized to you for what you're still going through.
There's no need. It wasn't you.
I'm sorry. He is too. Completely. If I could wish it away.
No. You're helping break the cycle. That should be more than enough.
After defeating the first knight of Fickrul, an Ahamkara chimera appears. Ahamkara often take on the form of different things. In this case, like in Forsaken, Heffend appears as a chimera. The creature is dead but can use this chimera as an avatar. The blighted chimera transports the Guardians into the Dark Age cells.
was that? I just got a spike of weird Taken energy.
That was a chimera. It must be the Ahamkara's avatar.
Solving a puzzle thanks to skeletons on the ground with some tally marks, the Guardians break free from the cell and begin to further explore the castle. Petra and Crow explain the dangers of these creatures.
Is this bone all that's left? Not much of a territorial claim.
Death is not the end for an Ahamkara. If it's feeding, it exists.
That bone's radiating sterile neutrinos. Taken energy?
Yes, like poison in the marrow. But I don't understand how. It's like the Ahamkara here was feeding off the Taken, preying on their desire to fulfill a purpose. We understand what that's like.
They do like things that loop in on themselves. I thought only Riven dealt with the Taken.
Zivu and the Witness are indisposed. Many Taken are masterless. It's possible a strong will, like an Ahamkara, could have drawn them in.
Or maybe the Scorn wished them here.
Any Scorn making a wish probably doesn't realize they're doing it. At least let's hope not.
The Great Hunt doesn't seem to have stopped Ahamkara from granting wishes. It's a shame to shed so much blood for so little return.
They were beautiful creatures, but venomous with guile. It's true the hunt wasn't all motivated by safety. Ahamkara were a threat, but as you noted, their bones are still trophies. Some Guardians continue to wear them for power and status.
Like I said, a shame. Ahamkara were all across Seoul. Maybe they're not all dead.
The Guardian fights through a maze and outward, ascending the castle as the blighted chimera of Hefend follows and attacks. Entering a sewer pipe, we head up the stairs and encounter our second boss, the Locust of Wailing Grief. I don't think much is known about the Locust lore-wise, but overall it's taken and represents the immense grief and pain in the situation at this location, for the Scorn being taken, and also for Naim and Hefend. The Guardians fight through enemies to the top of the castle where they find Hefend's Vengeance blighted chimera, the final boss of the dungeon. Slaying the avatar of the Ahamkara, we secure the bones to make sure something like this could never happen again. The last wish placed here by Naim and Hefend did bring about vengeance, but now they were safe to rest like Shax originally had intended, amidst the ruins of a changed Warlord's castle.
This is all that remains of the Ahamkara then. Even like this, in its silence, it could move worlds. The damage the Scorn could have caused had one of them realized what they possessed. We'll secure the bones and make sure this can't happen again.
Yeah. This makes me a little worried about the hidden cost of our deal with Riven.
That thought has crossed my mind.
Shax is the other Warlord?
Saladin never mentioned that? It's sweet in a way, that this is the way Hefend chose to speak to us.
Well, Hefend, I'm sure the Guardian found you a worthy opponent too. We were glad to hear your story. Who wants to ask Shax about this?
Hefend is an Icelandic word originating from hefna, meaning to avenge. It is used as a noun to denote revenge or vengeance. There's some backstory on the word there. Apparently there's a bunch of different ways to pronounce this, but I just went with the way Crow does in Hefend. But that's the story of this dungeon. Overall, my thoughts, I really love this location and story of the lore. Bungie themselves could make a whole Dark Age medieval themed version of Destiny, or at least more locations and activities in this setting. It felt like such a nice change from things we've had over the past year, like a city like Neomuna to these corrupted ruins in a mountain. Also, they brought back up Fikrul and this Scorn plotline. Fikrul we know has been out there, but haven't had an update in years. We may see more on this character in a future episode, but for now this is what we have. There's also a bunch of cool secrets and little references throughout this dungeon, like the Easter egg at the beginning where you can find a dead Guardian fire team in a cave. But Guardians, that's all we got for this video. If you enjoyed the story, let me know down below, and please be sure to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more just like it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.